Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a beautiful and kind-hearted young girl named Cinderella. She was the only child of a prosperous merchant, and her mother had passed away when she was just a baby. Despite the loss of her mother, Cinderella grew up to be a gentle and loving soul, known throughout the kingdom for her grace and kindness. Cinderella's father, who adored her with all his heart, decided to remarry in the hopes of providing his daughter with a motherly figure. He married Lady Anastasia, a widow with 2 daughters of her own, named Anastasia and Drysla. At first, everything seemed promising, and Cinderella's heart was filled with hope that she would finally have a loving family once more. However, as the years went by, Lady Anastasia's true nature began to reveal itself. She was a vain and selfish woman, obsessed with her own beauty and the idea of marrying her own daughters off to wealthy noblemen. Cinderella's stepsisters, Anastasia and Drysla, were mirror images of their mother, cruel and self-absorbed. Cinderella's life took a drastic turn for the worse after her father's untimely death. Lady Anastasia seized control of the household and relegated Cinderella to a life of servitude. She became the family's maid, forced to cook, clean, and tend to every whim of her stepmother and stepsisters. Cinderella's once happy home had become a prison of cruelty and indifference. Despite her harsh circumstances, Cinderella remained resilient and kind. She befriended the animals that roamed the estate, and they became her only companions in the lonely hours she spent toiling away. Her dreams, however, kept her spirit alive. She would often look out of her small attic window, gazing at the stars and wishing for a better life. One day, an invitation arrived at the household. The kingdom was abuzz with excitement over the grand royal ball to be held at the palace. It was a celebration in honor of the prince, who was of an age to be married, and all eligible maidens in the land were invited to attend. Cinderella's heart skipped a beat when she heard the news, for she had always dreamt of attending such a magnificent event. Lady Anastasia and her daughters were ecstatic at the prospect of going to the ball. They spent weeks preparing and ordering the finest dresses, jewels, and accessories from the kingdom's most renowned designers. Cinderella watched in silence, her heart heavy with longing, as the preparations for the ball consumed the household. One evening, as the ball approached, Cinderella found herself alone in her attic, tears streaming down her face. It seemed that her dream of attending the ball would forever remain just that, a dream. But then, something magical happened. A soft, melodious voice echoed through the attic, and Cinderella turned to see a radiant figure bathed in a gentle, ethereal light. It was her fairy godmother, a magical being who had watched over her throughout her life. "My dear Cinderella," the fairy godmother said, "I have seen the kindness in your heart and the love you share with all living creatures. I am here to grant you a gift, a one night of magic and wonder." With a wave of her wand, Cinderella's rags transformed into the most exquisite gown she had ever seen. It was a vision of shimmering silver and lace, adorned with sparkling crystals that caught the light like stars in the night sky. Her tattered shoes became delicate glass slippers that seemed to glow from within. But the fairy godmother's magic didn't stop there. She transformed a pumpkin into a magnificent carriage, mice into dashing white horses, and a rat into a coachman. Cinderella was awestruck as she stepped into the carriage, her heart pounding with anticipation. "Remember, "My dear," the fairy godmother warned, "you must leave the palace before midnight, for when the clock strikes 12, your magical transformation will end." Cinderella promised to heed the warning, and with a swirl of her gown and the jingling of her glass slippers, she was off to the royal palace. The journey was nothing short of enchanting, and Cinderella felt like the heroine of a fairy tale as she approached the palace gates. As she entered the grand ballroom, a hush fell over the room. The guests, including the prince himself, were spellbound by Cinderella's beauty and grace. Her stepsisters, Anastasia and Drysla, didn't recognize her at all, and even Lady Anastasia was taken aback by her radiant presence. Prince Charming, who had grown weary of the superficiality of the other guests, was captivated by Cinderella from the moment he laid eyes on her. He made his way through the crowd to reach her and asked her for a dance. Cinderella's heart raced as they twirled across the ballroom floor, her glass slippers glinting with every step. The prince and Cinderella spent the evening in each other's company, talking and laughing as if they had known each other forever. It felt like a dream come true, and Cinderella couldn't believe her good fortune. But as the clock neared midnight, she remembered the fairy godmother's warning. With a hurried apology, Cinderella fled the palace, leaving behind a stunned prince and a single glass slipper on the grand staircase. The prince, determined to find the mysterious maiden who had captured his heart, picked up the glass slipper and vowed to search the kingdom until he found her. As Cinderella's carriage raced through the night, the clock struck midnight, and her magical transformation began to fade. Her gown turned back into rags, the carriage became a pumpkin, and the horses and coachmen returned to their natural forms. When Cinderella arrived home, she was once again dressed in her tattered clothes, her glass slippers the only evidence of the magical night she had experienced. Cinderella knew that her stepmother and stepsisters would never believe her story, so she kept her secret locked in her heart. She hid the glass slipper in a safe place, hoping that one day, she would be reunited with her prince. Back at the palace, Prince Charming was determined to find his beloved. He sent his messengers throughout the kingdom, carrying the glass slipper and searching for the maiden whose foot it would fit. The news of the prince's quest spread like wildfire, and every eligible maiden in the land came forward to try on the delicate glass slipper. At the Tremaine household, Anastasia and Drysla could talk of nothing else but the ball and the prince's search for his mystery maiden. They were certain that the prince would choose one of them, and they did everything in their power to make themselves appear more desirable. Lady Anastasia, realizing that Cinderella had been at the ball, locked her in the attic to keep her hidden from the prince's search. Weeks turned into months as the prince's messengers traveled far and wide, visiting every corner of the kingdom. But none of the maidens they had met so far had a foot that could fit the glass slipper. As the messengers arrived at the Tremaine household, Lady Anastasia insisted that only her daughters could be the prince's true love. Anastasia and Drysla made every effort to convince the messengers, but the slippers simply did not fit. Just as the messengers were about to leave, Cinderella's voice rang out from the attic. "Please," she called, "let me try on the slipper." Lady Anastasia, in a panic, did everything in her power to stop Cinderella, but the messengers were determined to follow their orders. They brought Cinderella down from the attic, and as she slipped her foot into the glass slipper, it fit perfectly. The messengers were overjoyed, and Prince Charming was elated when he saw Cinderella again. He recognized her immediately, and they were soon reunited in a tender embrace. Cinderella's tears of happiness flowed freely as she realized that her dreams were coming true. Prince Charming and Cinderella were married in a lavish ceremony at the palace, and their love story became legendary throughout the kingdom. The king and queen, who had been skeptical of Cinderella at first, came to love her as their own daughter, and she brought a newfound warmth and happiness to the royal family. Cinderella's stepsisters, Anastasia and Drisla, were not so lucky. They were humiliated and left to live in obscurity, realizing the error of their ways. Lady Anastasia, too, had a change of heart, and she lived out her days in repentance, caring for those less fortunate. Cinderella's life had finally taken a turn for the better. She moved into the palace with Prince Charming, where she was welcomed with open arms by the king and queen. Her days of servitude were behind her, and she embraced her role as the kingdom's beloved princess. But Cinderella's story didn't end there. She and Prince Charming ruled the kingdom with wisdom and compassion, ensuring that all of their subjects lived happily ever after. Cinderella's kind heart extended to every corner of the land, and she used her newfound position to help those in need, just as her mother had taught her. And so, Cinderella's story became a legend, a tale of hope and perseverance that was passed down through the generations. It reminded everyone that no matter how difficult life may seem, kindness, goodness, and a little bit of magic can lead to a happily ever after. Cinderella's legacy lived on, a testament to the enduring power of love and the belief that dreams can come true.